To be an effective communicator, there are some things that you're going to have to stop doing. Uh, this one's a difficult video. You're going to see you're going to see some of the behaviors that you exhibit now as possibly an inexperienced or even maybe an experienced presenter that are going to be embarrassing. I'm sorry, but it needs to be said. First things first. Don't significantly shift your weight back and forth. I used to do this, where my head would lean from side to side. Be conscious of your mannerisms. You can see I move, but I move intentionally. Why did I lean in? I leaned in to give you an idea that maybe this is something important. Maybe I want to relate with you a little bit more. So I'm leaning in. That movement was intentional. See what I'm doing with my hands. I talk with my hands a lot. Sometimes my face isn't as expressive as I want it to be. That's my smile, and it's not a big smile. Especially with this beard, I'm conscious that this is not a very big smile. I had to overcome that. And so I use my hands in many cases to express a little bit more of my emotion, to talk to you and to relate to you when my face, as expressive as it is, may not be enough to connect with you. So I use my hands. However, in many cases, these can be distracting, and I need to put them down and rely almost completely on my face. This is when I know I need to get more expressive. This is when these little movements, very small but very intentional, they become important. However, movements can also be distracting. If you are constantly shifting your posture, you're going to distract your audience. So that's something that you need to do. Also understand that your eye contact, where you're moving, how you're looking, if you look distracted, your audience is going to think you're distracted, right? So you have to adjust some of those unconscious behaviors that they're really signs of nervousness. It's hard, isn't it, to not be nervous when you're talking in front of a huge group? I remember walking into a presentation once. I thought there would be maybe 50 to 70 people in this presentation. The hall held 1,100 people, and I'd say it was 2/3 full. I wasn't ready for that size of a crowd, and it's intimidating, isn't it? It's okay. Sometimes talking over Zoom, there's a lot of interaction that you're never going to see over Zoom, that you might be used to in person when you're giving presentations. You may rely on that feedback, and it can be nerve-wracking to not be able to see who you're talking to. You may want to don't play with your face. Don't do it. Don't touch your face. No matter how bad it itches, do not touch your face. Again, it's a nervous behavior. And you saw earlier when I touched my ear, how distracting was that? You noticed it. It was obvious. It's hard to get past those little ticks and twitches. And all of us have them. No matter how polished your speaking style is, you'll have little nervous ticks. Mine, I have to lick my lips. And so instead of, licking my lips, I try to use something like chapstick, and it keeps my lips from getting dry. That helps. These little tips and tricks can help you avoid your nervous behaviors. But the first thing is to identify, what are your nervous behaviors? Are you able to control them? Practicing again and again and again, delivering your presentations are going to help you control a lot of these nervous behaviors. Pauses. Those are all nervous speech behaviors. You have to stop those. Again, they're distracting. Very good speakers, very, very good speakers, still, when you catch them nervous, will go, you may hear me say, well, at the very beginning of an answer. And in a lot of cases, that's me stalling for time. So I'll use those intentionally. I'll say, okay. So That's me giving myself about 10 seconds to formulate an answer. You can use those effectively. They're good stalling techniques. Trust me, I use them. In the middle of a talk, if I were to insert ums and ahs every 15 to 30 seconds, I remember doing this with a college professor. In class, we would predict ums. We would time it so that we would say at the same time that the professor did. As a class, we started doing this. The professor didn't notice. I look back on that and 19-year-old me was not being very nice. But that's truly what your audience is thinking. Every time you say, your audience is thinking, great. It's a distraction. It becomes sort of a joke, and it can lead to you not being taken as seriously. During your presentation, especially if you're giving a long one, anytime I go over about 20 or 30 minutes, I get parched. What are you going to do? Well, I keep water close by. And I will take a pause to drink and then move on. If you are one of those people who are like me, and you can only go a certain amount of time before your voice goes hoarse without drinking some water, think about it as part of your presentation. Put pauses for yourself in there. If someone asks a question during a presentation, awesome time for you to take a drink. If you have a moderator who is talking and you can tell that they're going to go on sort of a lengthy speech, great time to go grab some water because the attention's now on the moderator. Someone asking a question, the attention is now on the person who's asking the question. So it is sort of an appropriate break in the flow for you to drink some water and get a little bit of that hydration so your voice doesn't get sore. But if you're halfway through talking and you leave a sentence, maybe you lose track of yourself, but your audience definitely felt that uneven break in the flow. That seemed strange. It was an odd spot to drink water. Time breaks. If you're not going to get any questions, if you don't have a moderator who's going to be back and forth with you, if you're not on a panel, time some breaks. Understand at checkpoints, maybe plan ahead for it. If you get parched at about 20 minutes, you want to take a break and take a quick drink at about 15. You're going to have natural pauses, and you can bake them into your presentation. They are breaks for you to reset sometimes. Perfectly appropriate. We all need time to breathe. We all need time to transition. Sometimes your audience does too. Warn them about a transition. Take your break, drink break, catch your breath, and then move on to the next one. You see how I made a pause in the middle of a sentence, and that was kind of useful because I showed you how to breathe. But at the same time, did you feel how awkward that was? If your cadence is very quick, if you're speaking quickly, that's another way that you're going to lose your audience. Speak quickly intentionally. If you are explaining something that you are excited about, it's okay to start getting a little quick. However, you don't want to spend your entire presentation, especially if it's a long technical talk, speaking quickly. Most people will get lost. Again, intentional pauses, intentional breaks. Catch yourself. If you're speaking too quickly, you'll realize that the amount of time that you're talking for is significantly less than the amount of time you planned to speak for. So look at that clock. Look at some indication of the passage of time. If you find yourself further ahead in your talk than you expected to be at this time, you're speaking too quickly. Slow it down. And again, those pauses can be very helpful in resetting yourself. The further you get from a pause, the more likely it is that you've started to speed up if that's one of your nervous behaviors. Tape yourself. Watch yourself give talks. Look for those unconscious behaviors or subconscious, I don't know, one of the two, behaviors that are signs of you being nervous. It's difficult when you're by yourself because sometimes you're more confident sitting in a room all alone. I am taping a video talking to myself essentially. This is easy. There's not a lot of nerve-wracking going on. Publishing it, that's when the nerves come. So I am a lot more comfortable just talking to my microphone and my computer here than I would be in a large hall, looking at hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 people, or knowing that I'm on conference on video with who knows how many people are on it. Could be 50, it could be 5,000. I don't know. I don't know how you're responding to my talk. That's nerve-wracking. And so the nervous behaviors that I will exhibit when I'm live, when I am in front of an audience, versus when I'm fairly comfortable sitting here in my office in some place that's familiar, talking to the camera and knowing I can edit. This isn't live. I get to fix anything that goes wrong. That's a huge safety net. I've been at conferences where I get pulled into an event and they say, okay, this is going on social media live. Those are some of the most nerve-wracking presentations that I have to give, because not only is this presentation going to this group, it's also going out forever, and it's live, and everything I say can't be taken back. I don't get to put little asterisks after what it is that I may have said. And if I'm speaking quickly, if I am not thinking my responses through or staying to familiar territory for me, it's scary. You can get into a lot of trouble, can't you? Those are when your nervous behaviors are going to most frequently come out, is these scenarios where you are most nervous. As you get more experience speaking, you'll have more examples of yourself in these situations and in these scenarios when you can get them videoed, when you can get a recording of the presentation. In some cases, you can't. Ask the audience for feedback. Make sure that you have one or two people in the audience you've spoken to in advance that you can ask for feedback. It may not have been taped. Maybe it's a live presentation that was not taped. Ask people how you came across. Ask people if they understood what you were saying, what you were presenting. Ask them about nervous behaviors. Did I seem nervous? Did you see anything that I was doing that seemed nervous? And if you have someone who's putting the presentation on, or if you have someone in leadership who's part of the presentation that you're giving, those are good people to ask. They've seen speakers before. They know what to look for. They'll give you some quality feedback, and they'll probably not be as harsh as some other people are. It's hard asking for feedback. It's hard hearing about these behaviors. And I'm giving you some that you probably recognize. Maybe you move a lot. Maybe you do some stammering. It's okay. It's a sign of nervousness, and that's okay, especially presenting to the highly technical, sometimes very senior, and sometimes C-suite, very influential people that we are speaking with. It is natural to be nervous. Many of us are introverts. I am an introvert, believe it or not. You see me on stage, I may seem confident. I may seem like I've got all the answers and I've got it all together. In many cases, because of my experience speaking, I do. However, it happens to all of us. There are these moments where I get nervous. There's a topic that I don't really want to be talking about. It catches me off guard. I find myself in a situation that I wasn't prepared for, like that talk where I was expecting 50 and got a whole lot more. You're going to get thrown for curves. You're going to get nervous. And if you're an introvert, that's hard to deal with. So you almost have to have a second side of you that comes out that pretends to be an extrovert. And you do your best. It's okay to be introverted. It's okay to be a little shy. It's even okay to look at your audience and say, whoa, was not expecting this many people. This is the biggest audience I've ever talked to. You are all very senior, very distinguished. Not quite used to being in this sort of a room before, so excuse me if. Those are all perfectly valid things to say. Many of the people in those seats understand very well what you're going through. Some people don't, and you need to educate them. You need to explain to them that what you're doing is kind of difficult. Don't spend a lot of time with it. Don't emphasize me. Don't do the whiny thing, but point it out, and maybe do it in a funny, sort of self-deprecating way. Say, wow, I didn't know I was this popular. Wasn't ready for this many people. That's funny. It's okay. You can pass that through. Or look around and say, Okay, fairly distinguished audience we have here. That's okay to say. And again, it relates to your audience that, okay, not the audience I was ready for, or you're an audience that's very intimidating. You can even say that. And we have some people who will intimidate me throughout this presentation. You can say that. It's okay. Don't dwell on it. Start out with it, leave it there, and then get going. Move forward. Catch your nervous behaviors. Be aware of them because you've practiced and you've seen yourself nervous. You understand that you may be more likely to do your nervous behaviors, and you may have time to time you have to catch that. You can do it once or twice and get away with it, and it's okay. If you catch yourself, only a very polished speaker is ever going to know that was nervous behavior. And when they see you catch yourself, that's a positive, because we all do the same thing where we have a nervous behavior and we've got to catch ourselves quickly and recover from that nervous behavior to bring our audience's attention back to us and to the message that we're presenting. So it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be an introvert standing in front of a massive crowd. Sometimes a crowd you do not see and can't get the verbal cues that you rely on in order to effectively communicate. Control the behavior as much as possible. Catch it where you can. Continuously improve your presentation skills by having people review what it is that you've done with an eye towards nervous behaviors. And also, if you can get tapes of yourself, tape yourself or get video, watch it, see what your nervous behaviors are, learn to begin to control them. Hope this has helped. Sorry it was uncomfortable. I know you're going to see some of this stuff in your presentations now and say, oh, don't be embarrassed. We're all new. Believe me, some of the presentations I have from a very, very early time in my career are filled with nervous behaviors. It's okay. We all get better.